Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Weekly Wildlife Wisdom. So far, I've been your host, Zero Yeti, and happy Fossil Day. For this year, this Fossil Day is going to cover the Mazon Creek Formation of Carboniferous, Illinois. Now, we have already notably covered several species from the Mazon Creek Formation, such as Mazon as well as Arthropleura and Orthocanthus. But we still have some cool critters to get through, starting with possibly the most famous creature from the formation, Monstrum, better known as the Tully monster or Tully's monster. It is an extinct genus of soft-bodied bilateral aquatic animal that lived in the shallow tropical coastal waters and muddy estuaries of what is today North America during the Pennsylvanian of the Carboniferous period, around 312 to 305 million years ago. First known fossils of this enigmatic beast were found in 1955 by amateur fossil collector Francis Tolley in the Mazon Creek Formation of Illinois. He took the strange creature to the Field Museum of Natural History, but paleontologists were stumped as to which phylum it belonged to. They named the species Monstrum gregarium, meaning Tolley's common monster. It takes its genus name from Tolley, whereas the species name gregarium means common and reflects its abundance within the formation. The term monstrum, or monster, relates to the creature's outlandish appearance and strange body plan. The fossil remains a paleontological puzzle, having been suggested to be a worm, a mollusk, an arthropod, a conodont, a vertebrate, and a non-vertebrate chordate. The smallest Monstrum species specimens reach around 3.1 inches or 8 centimeters in length, while as the largest get upwards of 14 inches or 35 centimeters long. Monstrum had a pair of vertical ventral fins situated at the tail end of its body, and featured a long proboscis with up to 8 small sharp teeth on each of its upper and lower jaws. The absence of a hard part in the fossil implies the animal did not possess organs composed of bone, chitin, or calcium carbonate. There is evidence of serial repeated internal structures. Its head is poorly differentiated, and a transverse bar-shaped structure, which was either dorsal or ventral, terminates in 2 round organs whose form and structure is suggestive of eye stalks, ending in camera-type eyes. Monstrum possessed structures which have been interpreted as gills and a possible notochord or rudimentary spinal cord. It also may have cephalopod-like melanosomes. To make things even more complicated, Monstrum has chemical signatures that are clearly distinct from Troth vertebrates, mollusks, and arthropods. In life, Monstrum was probably a free-swimming carnivore that dwelt in deeper, more open waters of coastlines, lakes, and estuaries. It may have used its distinct toothy proboscis to actively probe for small creatures and edible detritus in muddy and sandy substrates. Next up is Geraris, an extinct genus of Archaeorthopteran insect, which lived throughout what is today North America and Europe during the Carboniferous period, some 320 to 300 million years ago. The first known fossil of Geraris, consisting of multiple well-preserved fossil impressions, were recovered from what is now known to be the Mazon Creek Formation by American entomologist and paleontologist Samuel Hubbard Scudder, who named and described the animal as Geraris in 1885. Scudder designated 3 species, Geraris ventus, Geraris mazonus, and Geraris constrictus. Since then, many more specimens have been recovered, marking Geraris as one of the most abundant and common genre of insect known from the Carboniferous, with 9 species being valid: G. ventus, G. mazonus, G. constrictus, G. brucei, G. coloris, G. danielensi, G. fisheri, G. symmetricus, and G. teutonicus. Reach around 2.5 to 5 inches, or 6.35 to 12.7 centimeters in length, with around a 4-inch or 10-centimeter wingspan. Giraris had an inflated thorax armed with sharp spines up to 1 millimeter or 0.04 inches in length. The large wings had variable ventilation patterns suggesting a relaxed selectional pressure. This, together with the shift in weight and the strange thorax, meant that Giraris was probably not a very active flyer. Instead, it's been suggested that it may have been the Carboniferous equivalent to a stick insect, spending much of its time feeding on and blending into vegetation, relying primarily upon its spines to dissuade predators from eating it. If that wasn't enough, it could escape by jumping and using its wings as passive gliding planes, or possibly an awkward powered flight. Next up, we have Phlogistontia, an extinct genus of osteopod tetrapodomorphs, which lived throughout what is now Europe and North America during the late Carboniferous period to early Permian, some 310 to 290 million years ago. The first remains, known to be Phlogistontia, consisting of a partial skeleton, were uncovered near the mouth of Yellow Creek in Jefferson County, Ohio, and described by Edward Drinker Cope in 1871. Around the same time, another specimen, also consisting of a partial skeleton, was unearthed in the Plzeň Basin of what is today the Czech Republic by Antonin Fritz in 1875, who named the animal Dolichosoma longissima, believing it to be a member of the genus described by Thomas Henry Huxley in 1867. However, the genus Dolichosma has been considered to be a nomen nubium, because the holotype was originally inadequately described through a layer of matrix by Thomas Henry Huxley. And since then, most Dolichosma remains have been reassigned to Phlogistontia and relatives. Today, 2 species are considered valid, P. linearis and P. longissima, reaching upwards of 3.3 feet or 1 meter in length. Phlogistontia was long and comparatively thin vertebrate in the order Osteopoda, or Greek for having not visible feet, a group of highly specialized snake-like stegocephalians. While not true amphibians, these limbless semi-aquatic animals would have likely moved about and hunted in a similar fashion to modern Sicilians. Next up, we have Escumacia rorai, a species of enigmatic animal which lived throughout the rivers, lakes, estuaries, and coastal waters of what is now Illinois during the Muscovian of the Carboniferous period, some 310 to 307 million years ago. Due to the large quantity of fossils, it has acquired a common name, that being Y, or the Y animal, in reference to its shape. Several well-preserved specimens were collected from the Mazon Creek Formation, then analyzed, described, and named by Matthew H. Nachetti and Alan Solom in 1975. The scientific name Escumaci rorai honors E. Scumas Rory, a prominent figure and printer laureate of Illinois paleontology. Ranging from 3 to 8.1 inches or 7.5 to 20.5 centimeters in height, Escumaci features a tall stalk, a thick triangular main body, and 2 long arms. The functions of these arms are unclear. While being covered in cyanocytes and therefore a cnidarian affinity was proposed, this theory is unlikely due to the apparent anal slit on one side of the trunk, showing the organisms likely were bilateral and had a through gut. The mouth is likely represented by a broad slit between the arms. The stalk is elongate, however rarely appears complete in fossils, and the base is a bulbous disc with seemingly no surface features. Slight traces of a central cavity within the fossil suggest a large gastric cavity, likely to be a stomach. Various hypotheses of what its closest living relatives are have been proposed, from anemones to tunicates. However, no definitive conclusion has ever been made, and therefore is currently classified as Animalia incertae sedis. In life, Escumacia was probably a filter feeder, living attached to the sea floor and capturing suspended organic material or small planktonic prey with its mouth and arms. Next up is Mazoscolopendra, an extinct genus of scolopendromorph centipedes which lived throughout North America during the Pennsylvania of the Upper Cretaceous, not the Upper Cretaceous, Upper Carboniferous period. Apologies. Some 310 to 307 million years ago. The first known remains of Mazoscolopendra, consisting of a well-preserved fossilized impression, was recovered from the Mazon Creek Formation of Illinois by Peter Mundell of the University of Wisconsin in 1979, who described and named the animal as Mazoscolopendra richardsoni, meaning Richard's Mazonian centipede. Since then, several additional well-preserved specimens have been recovered, making Mazon scolopendra the second most common centipede of the Mazon Creek biota. Reaching at minimum 2 inches or 5 centimeters in length, this centipede has 21 leg-bearing trunk segments. Most legs are 1.5 times as long as the body width. The last pair is remarkably long and sturdy and projects posteriorly, and is equal to about 1/5 the animal's body length. Individual body segments have the outline of round-cornered trapezoids. The head bears long antennae with 14 segments. The general appearance of this animal is relatively narrow and flat, and its front legs are modified into venomous fangs, deadly enough to immobilize small prey. Next up is Bandringa, an extinct genus of elasmobranch cartilaginous fish, which lived throughout what is today eastern North America during the Pennsylvanian subperiod of the Carboniferous, some 310 to 305 million years ago. The holotype specimen, consisting of a juvenile individual, which was found in an ironstone concretion by Rainer Zanggerl in the summer of 1967. Zanggerl later described and named the animal Bandringa raei in 1969. Since then, several individuals, notably all juveniles, have been found throughout the Mazon Creek Formation, which means this area was likely a nursery for them. Also supporting this notion are fossilized egg cases, found in the same localities, although it is unclear whether they belong to this genus. Adult fossils attributed to B. raei have also been found in the soil heaps from Five Points coal mines near Conesville, Ohio, and Cannelton, Pennsylvania, both of which contain rocks of the Kittanning or Kittanning Formation of the Allegheny Group, which were roughly contemporaneous with the Mazon Creek deposits. The young, when first hatched, measure between 4 and 5 inches, or 10.2 to 12.7 centimeters in length, in contrast to the adults, which reach upwards of 9.8 feet, or 3 meters in size. Bandringa was a unique-looking fish with a very long snout, which made up about half its body length. The snout looks similar to the seen in unrelated anopterygian fish in the family Poliodontidae or the Acipinaceriformes. The body of Bandringa had 2 dorsal fins, a set of 3 anal fins, and a long tapering heterocercal caudal fin. It appears to have fed via suction feeding and used its long snout and needle-like spines in its cheek for hunting in murky water. Bandringa is one of the few fossil fish that has a well-studied breeding cycle. Salan and co-authors of 2014 found that the fish lived a lifestyle that was the opposite of salmon, with adults living in freshwater areas and the younger ones living in more brackish or saltwater areas, and when fully grown would swim back into the freshwater areas. And last but certainly not least, we have Adelophthalmus, a genus of Eurypterid, an extinct group of aquatic arthropods better known as sea scorpions, which live throughout the world's marine, brackish, and freshwater ecosystems from the early Devonian period to the early Permian period, some 408 to 283 million years ago, which makes it the longest lived of all known Eurypterid genera. The first specimen of Adelophthalmus was excavated in 1851 by German paleontologist Hermann Jordan in a railway shaft at the Jagersfreud near Saarbrücken in Germany. This specimen was inscribed 3 years later in 1854 in the work of the Crustaceans of the Coal Formation of Saarbrücken, written by Jordan and Hermann von Meyer. The fossil is immediately recognized by Jordan as that of a Eurypterid. Since the preserved carapace had no indication of there being any eyes present, Jordan and von Meyer assumed the animal would have been completely eyeless in life, and thus gave it the name Adelophthalmus, meaning no obvious eye. This apparent eyelessness has led to much subsequent confusion, including the naming of several junior synonyms. The lack of eyes of the type specimen is treated by modern researchers as a preservational artifact, and in life Adelophthalmus would have had several fully functioning eyes. In the 200 years since the holotype's discovery, thousands of specimens now known to belong to Adelophthalmus have been recovered throughout Europe, Asia, North America, and Australia, with there being 33 valid species, making Adelophthalmus the most taxonomically diverse of all Eurypterid genera. Adelophthalmus was comparatively small by Eurypterid standards, with species ranging in size from the smallest at A. duvillei, reaching around 1.6 inches or 4 centimeters in size, whilst the largest, A. caucasinchus, reaching around 12.6 inches or 32 centimeters in length. Adelophthalmus were streamlined, actively swimming eurypterids with prominent cuticle ornamentation consisting of small, minute scales across their backs. The head was parabolic, sporting a pair of larger bean-shaped eyes and multiple smaller ocelli being located between and or behind the main eyes. The body of Adelophthalmus was oval-shaped and ended with a long, sharp, styloform telson tail. Its back limbs formed long, thin paddles that were well adapted for active swimming, but could also propel the animal along the substrate and even across short distances on dry land. Adelophthalmus sported 4 pairs of specialized book gills that would have allowed the animal to breathe both on land and in water. The front appendages were small, indicating the animal likely fed upon small organisms. In many ways, Adelophthalmus was amongst the last of its kind, being an adaptable niche and habitat generalist, and the last known sea scorpion to possess swimming appendages. It was only outlasted by the highly specialized Styloneurian eurypterids. As always, take care of my guys, gals, non-binary pals. Have a wonderful day.